Well, to discuss this absolutely horrible killing, I'm going to bring in my two guests, LaDawn Jones and Nicole DeBorde. Hi, welcome. Now, LaDawn.
Thanks for having us.
Hi, you have quite a CV. Look, I did a lot of research on you. I want to let you know you were from Catholic school like I am, Tulane Law School, the Fulton County DA, a former representative of the state of Georgia. So I'm going to let you be the prosecutor. Tell us the high points.
The highest point that sticks out in the prosecutor's story is when he says, don't take our word for it, take her own. A jury is going to be able to hear Ms. Huber's words, be able to see her text messages, and that is going to be the thing that is going to tilt it in the prosecution's favor. Don't listen to our words, listen to what she had to say herself. And then in addition to that, the coverage of laying out the different things and where she was inconsistent. At one point, where the gun was did not match the crime scene, how she said the incidents occurred. The jury is going to hone in on those very distinct inconsistencies along with her own words, and I think it's going to be a very easy conviction.
Well, Nicole, jealousy kills. That's the theme of today in this program. So I'm going to give you, because you have an equally, I mean, the resumes are unbelievable. You guys can go online and check them all out. Former Harris County DA. She was a producer for the Michael Morton story, man who was wrongfully convicted. She's now doing defense work. She's in Texas. Give me the high points of the defense's opening statement.
So the defense has a real challenge here, as you know, and he's doing a very good job, in my opinion, of trying to set the stage for understanding what her perspective was. We already know that what she did is just awful. And so what this attorney is trying to do is set the stage for understanding how she was looking at this circumstance and why she might have felt fear and why she might have felt the need to use self-defense.
Wow. Wow. You know, this is a terrible, terrible case, and we're calling it female felons, female killers. I have my own two female killers, law killers here on this show helping me break this case down, because there's going to be more of this, and we're going to hear more about what this woman, who, by the way, somebody said, I think it was the prosecution, I wrote it down because I like to write it down when it says that the psychologist said that Shayna Hubers had an issue or issues. Well, duh, she shot her boyfriend 6 times. 6 times. That would seem to me that it's more than just one issue. Wouldn't it seem like that to you? Anyhow, we're going to go more into the Shayna Hubers case, right? We're going to discuss other people that are going to testify. We're going to discuss the crime scene. We're going to discuss her premeditation, and we're going to discuss her defense, which is that this poor man, he was just a bad guy. He threw her around, and guess what? For us Catholic school people, and that includes you, LaDawn, she had to kill him because the relationship stumbled over the fact that she couldn't give him an orgasm. Okay? That, I kid you not, for those of us who, know the Billy Joel song, Catholic Girls Start Much Too Late, that's part of the defense. Okay, so where are we going to go now? I'm going to ask my producers. We're going to go to break. I'm so excited about this case. I don't even want to take a break, but we have to.
If you're talking, they will hear you.
We all want our kids to grow up safe and healthy, so we show them how. And we tell them with honest conversations that let them know what we expect. Not just one time, but every chance we get. That's especially important when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. Kids not only need to know the dangers and how to avoid them, they need to hear it often from you. And when it comes to pain medications, opioids, they need to know that they should never be taken without a prescription and never shared with friends or family. It's dangerous and illegal. So talk with your kids and guide them through the challenges of growing up safe and healthy. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
So talk, they hear you. You can do it if you try.
Hey everyone, I'm Carissa Kranz, and this is legal news you can use. Have you ever been injured in a car accident? I'm a personal injury attorney, and I can help you out on this one. Here are 5 simple steps to follow if you're ever injured in an accident. Number 1, if your car is still working, pull over to a safe place. Number 2, call 911. A police report is proof that the accident actually happened, which helps in getting your car fixed and your medical bills paid. Now, typically an insurance company of the driver who is at fault is responsible for bills and damages. But if there is a dispute as to who is at fault for the crash, then the insurance companies may divide liability accordingly and only cover a portion of the expenses and bills. Number 3, seek immediate medical attention. Your case is only as good as your medical bills and documented records. 4, preserve as much evidence as possible. Take pictures of the scene of the accident and any injuries. Pictures are the best evidence for a jury. Number 5, do not give a recorded statement to any insurance company without consulting a lawyer. Anything you say can and will be likely used against you. Just go to Law&Crime.com for more legal news you can use.
Back. As you know, in Law&Crime this afternoon, we're doing the Shayna Huber's case on our female felons afternoon, where jealousy kills, and it certainly did in this case. So whenever there's a death, there's a first officer or an officer on the scene who sees someone who may have caused the death, in this case Shayna Huber's. Let's hear what Officer Enswiller told us about her visit to the scene.
She had mentioned something about, is he dead? And did you see the white sheet over him? But I don't remember exactly what she said about it.
Did she say anything specifically about where the shots were fired?
Yes, she said she thought she shot him in the face and in the chest, but she didn't remember which one was first.
What else did she say about the locations where she believes she shot him?
She had made a comment about shooting him in the nose, and I think this was on the recording as well, but she gave him the nose job that he always wanted.
You had mentioned, she said something about emotional abuse during this period of time before you get into the recording room. Did she say anything to you about physical abuse?
No.
During that period of time that you were with her, how would you describe her talking?
It was not very cohesive. It was bits and pieces of a conversation. She went from talking about talking to her mother, and then back to shooting Ryan, and then
we saw her on the video, and she talked a lot. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
Was that the same thing?
Yes.
Prior to?
Yes, that's correct.
So during this period of time when you don't have a recording to go back on, this is based upon your memory. Those are the types of things that you remember. That she mentioned giving him the nose job?
Yes.
Even prior to it being said on the recording?
Correct.
Just please clean it up. Objection sustained. Go ahead.
You remember her making that comment to you more than once, is that correct?
That's correct.
You remember her emotional abuse, and you remember nothing about physical abuse.
Objection, asked and answered. Overruled. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Is that what you remember?
That's correct.
Okay. Anything that you remember as it relates to Mr. Poston and guns?
That he was a gun freak, I think is what she called it. Mm-hmm. A gun freak or a gun fanatic. I can't remember what the terminology was. But that it was funny that the guns he loved so much killed him.
It's funny. At this point, Your Honor, I don't have any.
So, my female killers of my own here on the set who are helping me dissect this case, LaDawn and Nicole. LaDawn Jones is from, right now she's in Atlanta, right? You're in Georgia? And Nicole is in Texas. Where in Texas exactly today?
Houston, Texas.
Houston, Texas. Now, let me ask you this, and let me start this time with Nicole. If a defendant who talks to the cop says she's going to give somebody the nose job, or a nose job at one time it's reported, a nose job he always wanted. If you're the prosecution, are you like laughing, or are you saying, wow, this woman is some nut job and we're going to convict her?
You know, I think that it's pretty horrifying to hear as a prosecutor. You know, it's such ugly lack of remorse, apparently by her own statements, thinking that, you know, maybe it's funny that the guns that he liked so much killed him. He's going to get the nose job he always wanted. I mean, this is a person who's more worried about saying odd and funny things than about the person she just killed. And that's a great position for the prosecutor and a pretty nasty one for the defense.
Well, let me turn to LaDawn. LaDawn, and you are now the defense attorney, and she is saying these crazy things. I mean, just crazy. I mean, doesn't that help you try to show that this woman is just a nut job? She's not a criminal in the normal sense of the word, and maybe we should put her away in a mental asylum or someplace where she can get treatment, because that's not normal to laugh and to make those comments?
Absolutely. You know, with all the facts of this case, it seems like self-defense may have been a good backup plan, but self-defense based on someone with a mental illness, right, gives a brighter story. Since she talked so much, as the detective mentioned on the stand, I would have done everything as a defense attorney to get every crazy statement that she ever said, right? That in any way related to this case, not related to this case, so they can object to it and try to keep it out. Everything I would try to get in, because that's probably one of the only strongholds that they have, is that she has a mental illness. And I wasn't certain in looking back on this case of whether or not she was diagnosed prior to the first trial. I know she was certainly diagnosed after the second trial, or prior to the second trial, and you know, that could really make or break how a jury looks at her.
Well, you know, let me tell you, there's one other thing that you two may not know, and maybe you do. Before the killing, she was at the gun range, and she told her friends she wanted to turn around, shoot Ryan, and kill him, and play like it's an accident. Now, if you're a defense attorney, ladies and gentlemen, those, I can tell you, are not good words at all to show somebody is just mentally ill, because it shows that you have an intent. It shows that you have a motive. And since you're shooting guns, you know, on the side, like the gun freak you just killed, it shows you know pretty much how to handle the gun to kill somebody. So before we talk more about this case, we're going to find out what's on the daily debrief with Aaron Keller. Aaron, take it away, and what's on tonight?
Linda, good afternoon. We're going to break down the arrest of Patrick Frazee. He's the man in Colorado who authorities now suspect of killing his fiancée, who has not been seen since Thanksgiving. They don't have a body. They're not exactly sure what happened to her. At least they're not saying publicly, but they apparently have enough information to believe that she has indeed been murdered. A top Colorado defense attorney is going to join us at the top of the hour on the debrief to break down exactly what charges Patrick Frazee is facing. Also, we're going to talk briefly about what happened with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, spending the day in the hospital, having surgery on her lungs. We're going to talk about that issue as well. Plus a couple of other stories making headlines on lawandcrime.com. We're going to talk about including a college roommate, an exchange student accused of poisoning his roommate. We'll explain why authorities think he did that and what charges he faces. Plus, Linda, one more here, a judge in Western New York losing his bench. We'll break down exactly why he's just too old school to keep his job. That's on the debrief at 5 o'clock Eastern. We'll see you then.
That's some tease, Aaron. The first story, self-help, relationship, divorce, and of course Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who we all love and we hope that she survives. Really.
Certainly.
Thank you, Aaron. Stay tuned to Aaron's show, 5 o'clock to 5:30, Monday through Friday. Especially watch it tonight just before you leave for the Christmas holidays. Obviously, it'll give you some important news that you may not get over the weekend. But we're going to take a quick break and then come back to our own killer story, Shayna Hubers. Let's see what the next detective said. Mr. Birkenheimer.
We've heard a little bit about the defendant going to the firing range.
Yes.
Are you aware of that incident?
Yes, I am.
Through the course of your investigation, did you learn who it was that was attempting to arrange that day at the range?
Shayna Huber sent a lot of messages asking Ryan to go to the range. First, she started off asking a friend, Tom Awadaba, to join him. And she kept asking Ryan. Ryan was busy on, I think, the 1st of October and the 2nd. And after asking her quite a few text messages requesting from Shayna Huber to go to the range, they agreed and went on October 3rd.
We heard about October 3rd, and I just want to make sure, based upon your investigation, that you found messages referencing going to the range. Is that correct?
Yes, I did. There was quite a few text messages that
I'm going to approach now what's been marked as Commonwealth's Exhibit 146. Can you please identify that?
Yes, this is a text message or a chat message from Shayna Huber's cell phone to Yasna, the girl I talked about earlier. It was sent on 10/3 of 2012 at 10:53 a.m. UTC, which was made at 8:53 p.m. on.
Can you please read the content of what?
11:50.
I think I missed. It was 4 hours prior to 12:53 a.m. on 10/3.
Okay. So that would actually make it sent on the 2nd?
Right.
Okay.
At 8:53 p.m. I was correct. The text message, this is, again, from Shayna Huber's cell phone. He collects them. A part of me wanted to turn around and shoot him. I wonder why he's taking me on dates and stuff. LOL. I'm not going to turn down learning to shoot a gun. Ha ha ha.
Did you hear communication from the defendant regarding what she did when the two of them would break up?
Quite a bit, actually. There was messages that said she just shows up. She dresses up, gets looking pretty, and just shows up. She doesn't leave. She keeps calling him until he finally answers.
She say why she thought the defendant or the victim, Mr. Poston, was still with her after those occasions?
Because when he breaks up with her, she cries nonstop until he takes her back and he feels bad.
Let's talk a little bit about October 11th, the day before Mr. Poston was shot and killed. Are you aware of what happened earlier that week between the two of them?
Well, Shayna Hubers had been calling Ryan, asking to go out on a date, to go see the movie, take him to and go to dinner. I think he acknowledged that he would do that. She sent multiple messages trying to lock down the date and time and where they were going and such like that.
Okay. So that was her idea to go to a movie?
Yes, clearly.
And then we heard that later the plans changed.
Correct.
Okay.
Wow, so you can see that Shayna Hubers was really a stalker of sort, even though Ryan Poston kind of gave into her sometimes to avoid what he thought was going to be a problem, then creating a bigger one. So I'd like to bring my two guests back in, Nicole DeBorde from Texas and LaDawn Jones, a former representative in the state of Georgia, from Georgia, obviously. Let's talk about this clip a little bit. She goes to the gun range. She's learning how to shoot ha, 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 she says. She's trying to get him to stay with her, and yet she says that he is abusive. Look at that, the woman with the gun. Let me tell you, Ms. Hubers, that is not sexy. That is sad, since what she did with it was to kill somebody. But she wants him to stay with her. How does like stalking him get him to stay with her? I don't understand it. Could you give me some of the background that you know about LaDawn dealing with these cases from both the prosecution and defense?
So we're used to hearing battered woman syndrome, and so we have become accustomed to recognizing when a woman continues to return to a man in an abusive relationship, whether verbal, emotional, physical, or whatnot. This is the exact same thing, except for the gender roles are reversed. She was able to identify someone that had the type of personality that will allow her to continue to do things and push the envelope. People who are seeking to hurt someone, abusers, know how to identify the exact type of characteristics that will allow them to stay in these relationships. So she knew exactly what she was doing. That is what, predators are able to do. And we know that he had part-time picking up.
Yeah, then with that, Nicole, just really quickly, with that, because he's a nice guy, then he gets to be taken advantage of, and because he's a nice guy, he gets shot and killed. Is that what's happening here?
It certainly looks that way, especially from the prosecution's case. And, it doesn't seem to push back aggressively to what is perceived, at any rate, by the prosecution to be some pretty intense stalking-like behavior. On the other hand, I think that the defense has a really good, they're going to have to make, and they have made, a very good effort at showing that her perception of this relationship is much different, whether it's because she has a mental illness or because things are different behind closed doors.
Well, we're going to talk about perception. We're going to hear, after we go to break, things that are going to pull your heart out, test your heart, wrench your heart. It's going to be from the two fathers, the father and the stepfather of the victim, Ryan Poston. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Law and Crime Network. We're talking about the case of Lady Killer, the killer of Ryan Poston. Her name is Shayna Hubers, who had 2 trials. And in the 2 trials, the dad of Ryan Poston had to testify about his son, and his name is Jay. Let's hear Jay Poston.
Do you know where he typically kept that weapon?
He kept it on his dining room table.
And how is it that you know that?
I saw it there quite often.
Okay. So that was not unusual?
Not unusual at all.
Do you know the defendant?
I do.
And how do you know her?
How do I know her? Just from seeing her around my son in the condo every so often.
That was going to be my next question then. Explain to the jury what you mean by every so often.
Well, I just never knew if she was going to be there. There would be long periods of time where she was not there. If I walked in and I saw an overnight bag in the foyer, I would think, okay, she's here. But I never really saw any evidence of her being there. I never saw clothing in any of the bedrooms or anything of hers in my son's bathroom.
What would you say was the status of, I'll call it the situation between her and your son?
I don't know what the status was. The status was my son wanted her not to be around, and the status was she kept coming around. I would invite my son to dinner every week. I took my mother and father to dinner every night for 20 years, and every Saturday I'd invite my son, and I'd say, bring Shayna, and he not once did.
Ryan Poston was lucky to have a dad, and also lucky to have a second dad, a stepdad. His name is Peter Carter. I'm going to warn you now, get your tissues out.
Ryan was in law school at the time, and he came to me, and we were having dinner one night, and he hands me this paper and at dinner, and it was just the two of us because his mom and the girls were out of town, And I said, what's this, a bill for something? And he said, no, read it. It's a gift for you. I said, what is it? So I start reading, and it's a form, and it was a form to change his name. He changed his name because he said, Dad, this is who I am, Ryan Carter Poston, and I wanted you to know that. And I said, great, you don't have to do this for me, though. This is for you. And so that's what he did. But I never asked him to do this or there was never a discussion. This was something that he just wanted to do. And he said, this is who I am. So I accepted that, and so did his dad, because we've raised him together. We were both his fathers. If he said something to someone, he would introduce me and Jay as his dad, and that was the way we wanted it. He had two dads. He told a French exchange student one time, I have a mom, 3 sisters, and 2 dads. Typical American family. And I kind of laughed, like, do you realize that that's funny? And he said, what's funny? He was 11 years old at the time, and it was just that was his place. So that's just how we raised him.
Ryan Carter Poston. Let's hear more about this poor man who was killed by Shayna Hubers by listening to his friend, who's a lawyer.
Spent with Mr. Poston. At any point in time during that, did you come to know the defendant?
Oh, yeah, quite well. I mean, I consider him a very good friend.
I'm sorry.
Defendant. I'm sorry. I actually got to take a breath. Believe it or not, I'm even nervous a little bit.
You're not used to being on this side of
this is a weird perspective.
Right?
Sorry. Did I come to know the defendant? Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I didn't know her well, but I definitely knew her by first name.
Okay. Tell the jury about how it is that you met the defendant.
Well, through Ryan. I knew that she was Ryan's girlfriend, and I knew they had ups and downs. It would be more than ups and downs. It was definitely, it was on and off, I guess. And so she'd come around Ryan, basically, and always want to be around the office.
Specifically, did you see her on occasions at or near your office?
Yes. I mean, there's 2 times that actually stand out because she was somewhere that she wasn't supposed to be. So I remember I would see her a little bit but wouldn't pay attention. But there's 2 times in particular that it was very odd.
And tell us about that.
One of them was Ryan and I just came back from eating lunch. And we were just talking about whatever, walking down the street. It's a nice day. And he just broke up with her. Life's good, going on, so wonderful. And that might have been my cell phone trying to turn off. And he broke up with her, and he's going on with his life. And so we're walking down, and all of a sudden she comes across the street. This is on Sycamore Street. She comes across, said, "Hey, Ryan, you forgot your lunch." And she had a brown paper bag of lunch. And I looked at Ryan, like, oh, I'm missing something here because you just broke up with her. It's over, and she's got his lunch. And we just came from lunch. And Ryan kind of let me handle it and wanted me to get away. And okay. So I just went back in the building. And
did he seem surprised?
Surprised and almost annoyed.
I'm going to object to speculation, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Thank you, Your Honor. Did he express how he was feeling about her being out of town?
Oh, that was good. He liked that. She was out of his face. First, he was trying to give her hints or infer. Most of it was text. There was a lot. It was almost all text. I can't remember necessarily Facebook, but it was electronically. And then the text got more obvious and outright, we're done, we're finished, things of that nature. it just never worked. But he wouldn't really, I don't think he ever, that I knew of, did it face to face, except this time he was standing up. It's over. And it was obvious because things were going both.
And do you know when he was intending on doing that?
I want to say, I think I met with him the middle or towards the end of the week during the day, and I thought it was that weekend, if I remember.
All right. Right around the time, though, that he was killed.
Oh, I think it was that day. That was what it was supposed to happen.
Wow, so Nicole DeBorde, criminal defense attorney from Texas, former prosecutor. You're hearing about the victim, Ryan Poston. And matter of fact, the victim's family, twice they had to go through this. Did he sound like to you somebody who was beating her up, who was attacking her, throwing her to grounds in different situations, making her feel bad, making her like a victim because she couldn't have an, excuse me, Catholic school, here we go again, an orgasm, okay? Does that sound like that's this person?
It really doesn't. I mean, and not only is he talking about the complainant in this case, the victim in this case, but he's telling us a lot about the defendant and her actions and just how crazy she seems and how aggressive and how intensely she pursued him even after the relationship was over. So this testimony has been very powerful.
And then LaDawn Jones, didn't he just give us the motive for why it was that night that she killed him? Is because Ryan Poston wanted to break up with Shayna Hubers. Is that a good enough motive?
Absolutely. If we've already had premeditation from her previous text, and then we know that there was some event, right, that invoked whatever anger she may have had in her. I mean, that truly did kind of bring the case full circle.
So sometimes you don't know, though. People aren't what they seem, right? Because we've known cases and victims who were abused, but their abusers always seem like upstanding citizens, right? Take priests, for instance, okay? So does this tell the whole story, LaDawn?
It does. It does not tell the whole story, and this often happens when you have a trial where you hear several witnesses back to back supporting one side, and it seems like it's all over, and then someone else gets on the stand that describes the person as scary or a past bad relationship.
Yeah, well, let me tell you that what we're going to hear next is the person who is scary, who was a stalker, who was a shooter, who was a female killer, and her name is Shayna Hubers. She admitted doing it. And look, there she is, smiling, practicing at a gun range. Now, that's not to say that she wasn't abused, but she's going to have to prove a self-defense. She's the one who has the affirmative burden here. So I can't wait to get back and hear what this killer is going to say. You have to stay with us. Please stay with us. Don't move that. You know, Anthony picked that porn star story. I'll tell you why. Because he knew that one of my guests, LaDawn Jones, went to Catholic school, and he knew I went to Catholic school, so he had to throw that in just to make life even more exciting when we're discussing all this. By the way, we're not just the Law&Crime network, we may be the sex crime network pretty soon. But before we laugh about that, because we have to have a little light humor sometimes, I'm going to show you, because we talked about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, what one of my guests has with her right now, and that's Nicole DeBorde. Nicole?
Check this out. Best gift ever from a friend. It is a Ruth Bader Ginsburg handbag.
Wow, and you have to understand, she is a role model for us. She voted when she had her first cancer, and she voted. She voted when she was in chemotherapy. When she had her second cancer after her husband died, the day after, she was practicing law with the Supreme Court, and now again she votes 5-4 on a decision that's very important. Okay, so let that stay with you, and let's go to another important thing, and that is the death of Ryan Poston. We are finally going to hear. I promise you. I know I've been teasing you all day, but I promise you we're going to hear from the killer, Shayna Hubers herself.
Did you all have any private conversations at that time?
Yes, sir.
And did you all go anywhere else together?
Yes. Ryan met me at the restaurant bar that I was having the party at is called Tin Roof. It was fairly new back then. This is a long time ago. he wanted me to leave Tin Roof with him and go to a different location, like 2 doors down. And as we were leaving the bar, I remember he grabbed onto my wrist really with a strong grip and was walking ahead of me down the street towards, I believe it was called Two Keys Tavern at the time. And I remember thinking that he had a strong personality and was, I feared him. I felt like I needed to do what he was telling me to do. Once we got there, we were sitting in a booth at this tavern, and I recall Ryan, I had on a dress, and I recall Ryan reaching at my dress and grabbing onto one of my thighs and making a comment about my thigh that felt inappropriate or vulgar for how little I knew him in person. And
how did you react to that?
I got up and went to the bathroom, and my phone had died, and I asked another man if I could use his phone, and I called a cab, and I left the location, I left the facility and went home.
Did he stay on the couch?
He stayed on the couch for a while, but he didn't remain there.
And what occurred after you went on to bed?
I went on to bed. I woke up for whatever reason. I had a chair like this one, like at my computer table next to my bed. And I woke up and he was sitting in my computer table at the chair, watching me sleep. I don't know if he was also playing around the computer because he couldn't sleep or what, but he was sitting in the chair watching me sleep, and he said, "I can't sleep on the couch. Is it okay if I get in bed with you?" And I remember saying, yeah, but I really do just want to sleep. Like, I have to get up tomorrow and study for school or something like that. And I allowed him to get in the bed with me. One thing led to another, and he wanted to mess around with me. And
was that okay with you at the beginning?
At the beginning, he was.
Now, that's Shayna Huber's in the stand, and it's her perspective as what's happening, and maybe actually what happened. So I want to bring my guests back in to discuss this. Well, Dawn Jones, you have been both a prosecutor and a defense attorney, and you're in Georgia. Now, this is a case that occurred in Kentucky, and what she's complaining about are things that obviously, if true, we wouldn't like, someone just putting your hand up your leg. But then they go to her house, and he takes out a gun that had been concealed, and then puts it on her counter, because Kentucky would be an open carry, actually, state, and somehow she's finding all problems with this. Is this in her head, or is this the background for the justification of her shooting him?
You know, it sounds very much like this was a conversation that she had with her attorney in his office as they tried to prepare statements to add if she was just insistent on speaking in her own defense. But she seems so unbothered. Her emotions do not match with the words she's saying.
Okay. And then, Nicole, once she's talking about this, is the fact that she's already discussing that he had a gun, does that give rise either in her mind, in reality, that she starts to get fearful of him, or is it because she is a wounded person, because obviously she has some mental defects that she's fearful of him, or is it just made up?
You know, I kind of feel like it's a little bit of all three. I mean, it really is ringing hollow, but what she's definitely trying to do is establish that right from the beginning, he was trying to make this appearance of being in total control by having a gun and having it with him, even at odd times. I have to agree with LaDonna. It just seems highly unbelievable given her expression as she tells the story.
Yeah, she doesn't have any expression. Well, let's see how she testifies even more, and if we have a different view of her with her next perception. And I'm going to say it's her perception.
Did you all continue to see each other after Thanksgiving?
Yes, sir.
And
Was that continuous, or were there bumps in the? No, that's was that continuous, or was that continuous?
I know what you're getting ready to say. There were some bumps in the road, but there was one breakup between Thanksgiving and Christmas that lasted a couple weeks, and then we got back together about a week before Christmas and stayed together until late winter, late winter.
Ms. Hubers, during that late 2011 period, what did you believe that you needed to do to make this relationship continue to work with Mr. Poston?
Ryan always put pressure on me to orgasm. He put pressure on me to get breast implants, and he also put pressure on me to remain a certain size or lose weight. At one point, I lost weight for him, and he told me I was too skinny and to gain weight. He was always very particular about my size and things of that nature. The orgasm thing was the most important, I believe.
So Shayna Huber's on the stand. She has to testify because her defense is self-defense. So she has to show us how she became scared of Ryan Poston, how he threatened her, how she then got to the point where she shot him bang, 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 bang. We'll have more of Shayna, if you can take it, after this break. Welcome back to the Law&Crime Network. We are on Lady Killers Day, Lady Felons Day, Female Felons Day. Call them what you want. Ruled by jealousy, controlled by jealousy, and jealousy caused at least this young woman, Shayna Hubers, to kill Ryan Poston. Let's see how love turned into hate and how life turned into death. Let's listen to more of Shayna.
Did you communicate to him about whether or not you did in fact achieve orgasm?
Yes, I did.
And what did you tell him?
At times I lied to him and told him that I had achieved orgasm, or I faked an orgasm because I wanted him to feel better about the situation. I felt like the whole issue emasculated him. And he also used it to make me feel inadequate and like I was less of a person or a woman, that I hadn't had this experience in my life. And so yes, I lied to him about it on occasion.
I want to bring you to early March 2012. Do you recall an incident between you and Mr. Poston in early March?
Yes, sir.
So, what happened?
I had spent the night with Ryan, and we were both dead asleep. It was in the early hours. It was maybe, I'm not sure about this, maybe 8 or 9 in the morning, and he woke me up by pushing me out of the bed. I was woken up to him just pushing me out of the bed, and I didn't even know why he had done it, and I was startled. I was shocked. I didn't know what was going on, and he just started screaming at me.
About what?
He wanted me to go to Kroger and buy a morning after pill, which is, and I took birth control pills, which is what you take. It's like a Plan B method.
Did he touch you?
Yes.
Okay. How did he touch you?
We got into a little bit of a shoving match. This was the first time anything ever got physical. We got into a shoving match in the bedroom, and he told me he hated me and to leave. And I was packing my things in the living room, and I had a duffel bag in front of the doorway in the bookcase right when you walk in. And he was going into the guest bathroom to get ready for work, and as he was walking past me, he shoved me into the bookshelf on his way through the hallway.
And how did you react?
I got as much of my things together as I could and left.
When did you next see Mr. Poston?
A number of days later, a couple of days later.
And how did it come to be that you saw Mr. Poston?
I was at a bar in Lexington for the Final Four Challenge, UK basketball, and a girl began talking to me who knew Ryan, and she told me some things that Ryan had been saying about me that were very cruel and hurtful and degrading.
And how did you respond to that?
I was drunk, and I was very upset, and I sent him text messages asking him if the things that the girl had said were true. And he denied it, and he was angry with me. And the next morning, I got in my car and I drove over to his house to confront him about it, because I felt like the things he was saying he was spreading rumors about me that were untrue, and I felt like the things he was saying were so horrible, and about my vagina. He was talking about my vagina with people that I went to school with, and I felt like he was making it so that I couldn't even live in my hometown, and I thought it was cruel. And I thought he was attempting to sabotage my future so I couldn't move on.
What happened when you went up to his condominium?
And obviously, I still had a key. I walked in and confronted him about it, and we got in a big fight. And he picked me up and carried me from the bedroom out of the condo and threw me on the doorstep. And I came back inside to get I had set my purse inside the house with my keys, and I came back inside the door to get my purse and my keys. And when I did so, he began beating my body with the door over and over and over.
What door?
The door to the front of the house, the door to the front of the condo.
Okay.
LaDawn and Nicole, quick questions. We only have a very short time, 30 seconds each. Common sense or nonsense, her testimony?
Nonsense.
Common sense.
Get out of the doorway.
What's that?
Said nonsense. Get out of the doorway.
Okay, that's one vote.
Absolute nonsense, and her demeanor shows it.
Demeanor shows it. So this is what we look for. This is what juries are looking for. We are a jury. I mean, we are a lawyer's jury, and we know that one of the decisions the defendant makes is to testify. Let me tell you, you have to do it if in self-defense cases, but boy, I agree with them. I agree with my lady killers. She's not helping her case. We have to go to a quick break now, though. We'll come back, and we'll hear more from Shayna Hubers. Oh, I'm sorry. We have one more clip. I'm really excited. Let's hear it.
Did you Poston go to a shooting range together?
In early October, yes.
Okay. And did you communicate with Christy Order about that?
Yes, sir.
And did you indicate, what did you communicate to Mr. Order about that?
I told her that we were going to the range together.
Did you send her a picture of you at the range?
I'm not not sure if I sent her the picture or if I sent the picture to someone else.
Okay. Did you communicate to her anything about Mr. Poston at the range?
Yes, I made an ill-humored joke that's no longer funny, and it's been taken out of context and made into something it's not.
What did you have any intention of wanting to shoot Mr. Poston?
It wasn't meant seriously. I tend to have a dark sense of humor, as do some of my friends, and the text was not meant seriously, no.
This is Shayna Hubers. Now, we've seen a number of defendants testify recently. Some of them have been amazing to watch and watch their inner psyche working. And you actually can kind of, when you look at her, you see her thinking, you see her turning. I don't know if you saw this, turning in her chair. Now, my lady killers of my show here, LaDawn Jones and Nicole DeBorde, we talked about this before. She gets to elect whether to testify. How would you try to avoid this? Because when she says, this was a joke gone bad. On October 1st, she turns to her friend and says, I wanted to turn around, shoot and kill him and play like it's an accident. And later on, she shoots him and kills him. And she says, well, this was just humorous. How do you overcome this? LaDawn.
I don't think you overcome it. You run into the prosecutor's office as soon as the case is overturned and try to work out the best deal possible and force your client to take it and hope that they give you a deal that's worth it for judicial economy.
Well, that's one way of looking at it. Now, Nicole, let's assume the prosecutor's office adheres it. Look, we tried and convicted her once. We are going to try her again. And by the way, since the jury in Kentucky gets to make a recommended sentence, she can go to jail for longer than 40 years. She may be subject to life. So why don't you just plead guilty and let the judge decide now? Would you have done that in this situation?
Oh, sure. I mean, I would have taken the client down and tried to work out a deal too. But the reality is that you can lead a horse to water, but you cannot force them to drink. And oftentimes clients will do what they want to do, regardless of what the advice of their attorney is. And in this case, she seemed to think that she was far more clever than everyone in the room. Looks like the jury gets the final word on that.
Wow, well, that is one way to express it. Actually, the jury is going to get the final word. Actually, the judge will get the final word eventually, because in Kentucky, the judge can accept or not accept a jury's recommendation. But boy, there is a lot to think about, isn't there, here? Well, we're going to have more. If this isn't enough, you really have to stay tuned. This is riveting testimony only on Law and Crime. But first, we have to take a quick break. So, Shayna Hubers, the question in this case is simply this. Did she kill Ryan Poston because she was jealous? Is she a female felon, lady killer, because she's jealous? Or did she kill Ryan in self-defense? Let's listen to the crux of what happened, the time, the actual time, the day, the moment that Ryan was shot.
And what happened next?
I turned and looked at him, and he was running towards me. He grabbed me again, and he picked me up in a similar way again, and he started carrying me. And I believed, because of the direction he was moving, that he was trying to carry me out of the house, as he had done before earlier in that year. And when he was trying to carry me, I guess I was kicking, and he fell on me. I don't believe he meant to.
Did you call anyone else after you spoke to your mother?
911.
Okay. And when you did that, did you follow the instructions of the 911 operator?
Yes, sir.
Did you get up from the floor at that point?
No, not yet.
Okay. Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what happened.
He set the gun back down on the table, and he walked around the table, and he was still talking, and he was still saying hurtful things. I don't remember exactly what. And he sat down in his chair for a brief moment, and he was standing up from the chair, and he was reaching across the table, and I don't know if he was reaching for the gun or reaching for me, but I was still sitting on the floor at this point in time, and I got up off the floor, and I grabbed the gun, and I shot him.
I almost don't even know what to say. This is such a horrible story that whether she in her mind believes that he was saying these things to her, like she had been abused as a kid, or whether it really did happen. All I know is that from what I see, LaDawn Jones and Nicole DeBorde, I saw a lot of anger in her voice at the end and her clenching of her teeth. What about you?
I have to agree. I mean, I noticed that earlier, and I'm glad that you pointed that out. That almost never serves a witness well. Anger on the stand is almost always detrimental to the credibility of whoever it is that's getting angry.
Well, I'd like to go off that then, LaDawn. If she is that angry, would they have been better off not putting her on a self-defense? Or maybe it was a perceived self-defense because she is so damaged psychologically. Maybe she was, as a child, hurt. Maybe she was abused. That this is what she perceived and it was not real. It's almost an imperfect self-defense, but it's not. Would you try some kind of defense like that instead of this?
You know, if you had some evidence that could support it, but it sounds as if she's denying that, right? That's what made her so upset. So, you know, but as you've mentioned, because it is self-defense, she has to get on the stand. I want to point out one other thing I noticed. Yes. She spoke to the jury the entire time. You know, you always try to train your witnesses to speak to the jury and connect with them, but it was almost as if she was putting on a show and she enjoyed it, and that's very unusual.
Yeah, and the other thing I saw, Nicole, is that, you know, when people are nervous in the stand, they tend to, I don't have my water. Yes, I do. I have my water bottle here. They take a sip of water from their cup, right? Or they lick their lips like she was doing. And these are things that we as trial attorneys look for to see what are the push points. I saw a lot of that too. And what did that mean to you, Nicole?
She was very fidgety, and it is a nerve-wracking thing to be a witness in a case, and it's even more nerve-wracking to be a witness in your own defense. That said, you know, however nervous she was, that anger still really leaked through. So she was fidgety, but she didn't seem to be worried or upset. She seemed to be waiting for the next question so that she could put on more of her version.
Yeah, and LaDawn, one other thing to you is she mentioned that he got up at one point in one of the other clips leading up to this that he said you had to go buy the day after pill, the night after pill. Okay, did that ring true to you?
You know, everything that she described, including that, almost seems like an overreaction. She seems very angry about things that people may not normally be angry about. And so it is if, as you mentioned before, she may have made this up in her mind to justify everything that she was doing. I feel like a jury would see that pretty clearly.
Wow. So this is just amazing. So we have to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to go see how the prosecution and the defense deal with her testimony, because that's all this trial comes down to, her testimony and the death of Ryan Poston. Welcome back to the Law&Crime Network. I'm Linda Kenny Bodden. I have been navigating with my guests all afternoon. The lady killers, the lady felons. Were their killings motivated by jealousy? And we've been focusing on Shayna Hubers. And you just saw and heard her testify about the tragic death of Ryan Poston, which she had to do twice because she had 2 trials. Now we're going to listen to the closing arguments. First, the prosecution. Let's see how they sum up how Shayna Hubers did and what she did.
3 weeks, I think this courtroom has probably been a little bit of our state. Well, no, probably for the last 6 years. This whole situation has been a performance. Not my words, her words. I'm so good at acting. And the fact of the matter is this: if you cannot trust the messenger, You can't trust the message. It's that simple. Shayna Hubers has proven herself over and over and over and over again to not be trustworthy with her actions or her words. Not me who's saying it, it's her. So let's talk about all the people she lied to. And I know counsel said, oh, we acknowledge she's lying. But he didn't tell you everyone she lied to. She lied to her mother. She lied about the relationship with her mother. She lied to her friends. She lied to her classmates. She lied to her professors. She lied to the police. She lied. This is one thing they left out, to their own mental health expert. He admitted it. So who hasn't Shayna Hubers lied to? When she was in Hawaii, she didn't tell her mother where she was. She lied and said she was somewhere else. Her friends, according to her, she lied to them to tell them about her very personal, very detailed sexual experiences in order to make them think she had a healthy relationship. Do you remember me asking her? So you have to tell your friends you had anal sex in order to prove that you have a healthy relationship? She didn't have an answer for that. But she lied, if you believe what she said on the stand. Lying to her friends. Lying to her teachers to get out of doing what she has to do. Why she wasn't in school. What excuses. She even helped her friends lie to their professors. And her classmates who are in a school project, she tells them she's in Hawaii for a funeral when she's out boozing it up with her aunt. Hanging out at the bar. Tells them her poor aunt died. She will lie to get what she wants. Just like what she said before. I'll go to the ends of the earth to accomplish my goal. It just depends on what her goal is at any given time.
This is the prosecution argument. If you can't trust the messenger, you can't trust the message. I'll just remind you, there was another famous trial called O.J. Simpson in the 90s, where a famous attorney named Johnny Cochran used the same argument talking about the Los Angeles Police Department. But we're not there. We're here. What does the defense do in 2018 to make Shayna Hubers appear not guilty?
Give you the impression Ryan Poston was the happiest he'd ever been because he's going to break up and end it with Shayna Hubers on Friday, October 12th. But it wasn't until his uncle's testimony, Jim Poston's testimony, that you learned that he was relieved of the stress of this lawsuit with Barry Levy, the stress that had made him aggressive, the stress that had caused him to describe Barry Levy as, I'm not getting shit. I want this piece of shit destroyed. Bury him neck deep at low tide. Throw darts at his head. Wait for high tide to roll in so I can stomp on his head while he's drowning. That's the level of vitriol, anger, stress, and angst that Ryan Poston had as it relates to this lawsuit with Mr. Lee. All of which is going on up until Friday, October 12th. That's what we're led to believe. You also know that Ms. Hubers was aware before that of things that Mr. Poston had said about his former girlfriend, Ms. Worthy, and her fear. This is in July of 2012. Referring to her, she's terrified of me. One of the reasons she originally started dating me was because because she was very aware I would have killed her ex-boyfriend. At the drop of a hat, no one would have ever found his body. That is communicated to Ms. Hubers. That son. She thinks her dad can protect her from all those people in Lexington. And she's probably right. She knows he couldn't protect her.
That's the defense closing. Now, I'd like to bring my guests in quickly and ask them a short question before we hear what the verdict is. LaDawn, I started with you, LaDawn, talking about how you were the prosecutor. What was the prosecution's best argument?
They did what a good prosecutor does, and they started where they ended where they began by saying, listen to what she had to say, just like you pointed out. It is her own words, not just her previous statements, but what she said on the stand that I think would convince the jury the easiest.
Now, Nicole, I gave you the hard part when we started, which is the defense. What was the defense best argument that could sway a jury to not guilty?
I think that they made their very best shot at trying to show that things were not the same behind closed doors as they seemed on the outside, and that the defendant had every reason to be afraid of the victim in this case. I'm not sure that it's going to work, but that's what they gave their best shot at doing.
Well, let's see what the most important people in the room decided. That is the jury. Let's hear the verdict.
The jury has reached a verdict. Would the foreperson please stand up? Okay, and Ms. Lawrence, has the jury reached a verdict?
Yes, sir.
And is what you have, the jury's verdict, in your hand?
Yes.
Okay, would you give that to the bailiff, please? Okay, verdict form. We, the jury, find the defendant, Shayna Hubers, guilty of murder under instruction number 5, signed by the foreperson.
Wow, guilty. Now, that doesn't surprise you, LaDawn Jones, does it? Right?
A little bit, no.
LaDawn, who is a former trial prosecutor, a criminal defense attorney, a former representative in the state of Georgia, can't pull the wool over her eyes. Nicole, you are a former prosecutor, also criminal defense attorney. Proper verdict?
Yeah, I think it was. Not a tough one for the prosecution, unfortunately, for the defendant.
Okay, and just a quick question to both of you. The judge gave her, the jury in this case gave her life, which is more than the 40 years she got. Was that appropriate? LaDawn?
Absolutely. She had a chance to probably get less, and she would not accept responsibility.
Nicole?
It raises an interesting argument for potentially vengeful sentencing. She may have something on appeal.
Yeah, it does raise an interesting argument, but this case is all about whether or not love kills, and in this case, Shayna Hubers, love did kill. And, last night when I was looking at this, I said she may be evil, right, if she really did this. And then I looked at it, and, there's reasons to live. Okay, that's a defense argument. Was she vile? I mean, the 4 words you can use to describe her were not the 4 words she said that Ryan used to describe her. I want to thank my guests for being with us. This has been just the most interesting case, the most interesting day. My own lady killers right here. Come back to Law&Crime soon, please. Obviously, you got to stay tuned because Aaron Keller is going to be on with a daily debrief. You heard him. He is going to be on a lot talking about RGB. That's Ruth Bader Ginsburg. He is going to be on talking about the day's events. There's breaking news everywhere, and he's got a surprise. So something surprising I don't even know about. So stay tuned because you will have to know about it. But I'm Linda Kenny-Bada. I want to wish you all, I want to thank you all for staying with me. I want to wish you all a Merry Christmas, a Happy Holidays. I won't be back to January 2nd, but Law&Crime is going to be here after Aaron's show. After Aaron's show, it's still going to be here. It's going to be here next Wednesday. Stay tuned, and all thank you again.